Welcome to another edition of Stand Alone. Stand Alone is all about being extraordinary. It's not about doing what everyone else is doing. It's not about thinking like everyone else is thinking. It is about being extraordinary and going against the grain. So when I think about our guest today, I can't think of someone any better than Brandon Steiner. So you're talking about, what does Derek Jeter, the Yankees, American Express, the NBA, and the Everything Bagel have in common? One man and one man only. Okay. So, Mr. Steiner, we're in the presence of greatness today, and we're talking about a lot of things that I want you to really go hard with today, because you're a genius when it comes to marketing, when it comes to entrepreneurship. But as I read your book, you are just an all-time great hustler. That's really what I get from you. And you had me at balls, because when I think about business, Brandon Steiner, I think business is war. And I think just a lot of people, they like the idea of it. It sounds so good. You can be your own boss. But when push comes to shove, you don't have the stomach juices that's required to do well in business, to sustain in business, and to keep on going. So I really want us to dive into this today, because that's what it's going to take to be extraordinary and to stand alone. So I want to thank you for your time today. I also want to just say that, what you've been able to accomplish in your years is nothing short of extraordinary. Just the whole concept of you being a young boy in Yankee Stadium, and then fast forward years later, and you're buying that stadium and then selling it. It's just an extraordinary story. So I want to dive into this. And I want to kick off by asking you a little bit about your mom, right? Because she is the one that taught you got to have balls. And so I'm already a kindred spirit with your mom. Where did that come from? And how did that descend into you and then allow you to just really be a kick-ass entrepreneur?
Well, first, thanks for having me. And it's a couple of things. First, thanks for the introduction. And I hope that we can learn something today and share something. Business is a war, but I think it's a game. It's a game, and you got to score a lot of points. And I think sometimes people get confused by how many points you need to win. And it's also about scoring a lot of points for a long period of time. In business, like a lot of things, it's usually a sprint. But when you want to be extraordinary, it's a marathon. It's a sprint. But the entrepreneurism and being extraordinary, it's a marathon. It's a long race. And it's exhausting, and there's a lot of twists and turns, and I think you got to have the mental and physical stamina for it. We'll break down entrepreneurism, somewhere in this conversation. I'd love to do that, because I think people have a lot of misnomers about what it takes to be an entrepreneur. But I will tell you, you don't need to be born one. It's funny you say the thing about the hustler, because you got to have balls. That was my mother's favorite line. You got to have balls. She was always like, be fearless. Don't stop. Why? Don't limit yourself. Like, why are you thinking small? So, it's funny. And women always have a different approach to that. But you got to have balls was a play on words, because I've sold millions of signed baseballs. So that's kind of neat how everybody has a different view about you got to have balls. But I think I am the ultimate hustler. And the fact of the matter is that I think the genius in my marketing, if there is any, is just the truth. It's like, if you could just get to the real bottom of the truth, then you could really do some genius stuff. The problem is, a lot of people always want to scheme it. They want to just, they're way thinking about it too hard, as opposed to just, it's almost like a comedian. Like, you're looking for material that's just honest. It's just there. And then that's how you relate to people, by just hitting with the blatant truth. And I think my customers, which really, I've never wanted to have customers, have fans. I think they trust me. They believe me, because I'm transparent about who I am, what I've done, the setbacks, what I'm gone through. Done that in all three of my books. Most people read my books like, Brandon, gotta be honest with you, it's not that hard. Like, that's exactly. And if you just connect the dots and don't overthink it, but overdo it. Yes. You gotta overdo it, not overthinking. And these days there's so much strategy. And I was talking to one of my investors this morning. He's like, send me put together the deck of all the things you're doing. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. That's like, why? Like, why? So you can look at it and then ask me a million questions, which you're not going to understand. Like, and that's what a lot of companies are caught up in, a lot of forecasting, a lot of meetings. And, we just don't do that here with my new company, CollectibleXchange. I'm a disruptive character. And I will tell you one more thing before you ask me my next question. That is, I never wanted to be extraordinary. I never wanted to be successful. I think it's a mistake when you set those kind of goals. I wanted to be the only. Like, I want to be like walking and saying, oh, man, do you know what that guy did? You know who that guy is? Like, I just wanted to be that guy. I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. But, I just wanted to be like, wow, I can't believe what that guy did. And that's where my mind was all the way. I wasn't thinking about the money. I never realized I was going to make as much money as I did. I've had some epic successes. I've had some epic failures. But I was always thinking I was going to be the only. I was going to be like, wow, I can't believe what that guy did. It's unbelievable. And so you got to, I think what happens is a lot of people set their sights on being successful and they can't re-up. It's not the glass is half full or half empty. Is your glass refillable? That's the question. Because you get to success, you're making more than you thought you were going to make. You're doing pretty good. And it's really, really hard. You immediately have to reset and refill your glass and make believe like what just happened never happened. So I use an expression, you got to wake up broke.
Mm-hmm.
I wake up still to this day, and I've done pretty well. I wake up broke. I woke up at 4:00 this morning. I was like a dog. I don't know what to do first. I had like 50 ideas going on. I'm trying, should I go work out? Should I write these ideas down? And I think like, part of it is, being really healthy, exercising a lot, keeping your mind clear. You can't underestimate that, having some faith. But anyway, I think you got to wake up broke, and you got to also beat yesterday. You just got to want to get a little smarter, get a little better today than you were yesterday. And I know that's not sexy for a lot of people. And a lot of times when you go home, your wife will look at you like, how we sending our kids to college? Well, we'll be fine. I'm just working, getting better today than I was yesterday.
Yeah, this is great. You said so many things there. The one thing you do have is that New York spirit. I worked in Manhattan and Long Island for 3 years. And once you're in New York, that spirit, it like bites you. You were raised in Brooklyn. So you have a different blood inside of you, which is something that, while you were watching your mom. So I was reading these Steinerisms that you have, which I love. And the first one is a big part of who you are is who raised you and where you grew up. And I wanted to talk about this because today, Brandon, we have a generation of people that are just so entitled because they have access to so much more than you or I ever had access to. And we literally had to hustle and knock on doors. And when we had a thought, we had to be able to find a way to execute on that thought. And it wasn't as easy as it is today. But even though it's so accessible and easy today, I find people are doing less. Why would you say that is? Like, what is it in this generation, if we could give some words of wisdom here for us to just capitalize?
Let me say this. I know a lot of people get down on the generation, and it is confusing. First of all, there are a lot of young people that can move 20 times faster than I can move. There's some real efficiency and probably smartness. There's some smartness to these young ones that can find things, do things a lot quicker than we ever could. And I think some stuff has to balance out. There's a little bit of I think this virus thing definitely caused a little bit of a stir, and also create a different way we do business, not only from the in-person meetings, but a whole bunch of things where people were just used to working from home, not working as hard, not answering to bosses, not following up, using excuses. But eventually it's going to level out. Yep. This economy is going to tighten up. Things will get difficult. There's a whole bunch of theories behind it. I want to use an example that I really want to explain to the young ones out there. And first thing I would tell them is like, don't listen to the old people. We're older. Don't listen to us. But what I will tell you is respect us, because we made a ton of money in our generation, and it'll be very difficult to make more money and come up with more change than we did. We're the ones who invented all the social media. We invented the iPhone. We invented instead of putting a token in, using a card to get through the train. Like, so there's more innovativeness in the baby boomer generation. It'll be very difficult to innovate more. Now, this generation's taking what we've now invented and created. Because I always say your first idea is not your best idea. And the people that have invented 90% of the things that we all know about were not the ones that really were successful. It's the ones that improved it. So be an improver, not an inventor. Mm-hmm. Such an important aspect. So the real pressure on the young ones is to take some of the genius that a lot of our older generation created and improve it and make it better. And I see a higher level of entrepreneurism with teenagers now more than I ever saw when I was a kid. I was like a freak. There's a guy named Jack Taylor. He started a rent-a-car company called Enterprise. He was in the Navy, came out of the Navy, went to work for Cadillac. And, I asked you this question, like, Enterprise is a bigger rent-a-car agency than Budget and Hertz combined. Just so you understand the size of it now. And do you know how they get about 85% of their revenue?
How?
Replacement cars. People think it's come up to the airport, you rent a car. No, it's people that get into accidents, cars break down. And Enterprise does replacement cars. So Jack, I forget how many years ago, but it's quite a while ago, was working in this Cadillac. He had 4 cars, and he noticed that people were coming in with their broken cars and needed a replacement car. So here he is taking what the rent-a-car business was, what most people thought, right? You're coming out of town, you're a tourist, you rent a car. That was a small smidgen of the business that he was creating, because he saw the business different. And he got underneath the hood, and sure enough, look what he's done now. So what I tell the young ones is that we've had a lot of change recently, but an elephant, I'll use the example of an elephant. You know how an elephant dies?
Yeah.
An elephant eats 17 hours a day. And most people think an elephant dies of old age. An elephant eats 17 hours a day, sleeps and poops for a few hours, or a little bit here and there, and then tries to have some sex. But 17 out of the 24 hours, that elephant is eating. An elephant only gets 2 sets of teeth. They're eating 17 hours. After the second set, they're eating so much branches and everything else. Most elephants, even though they live a really long life, don't live anywhere near what they should live, because they die of starvation, malnutrition. Because they can't adjust, they can't alter.
Wow.
They can't figure out how to maybe eat stuff that's not going to wear their teeth down. And that's what I suggest to the young people down. It's like, first of all, look at your business differently. Just because we've had some incredible inventions and some incredible changes in the way we do business, don't look at it any other way than differently. Jack Taylor, built a multi-billion-dollar business looking at the rent-a-car business completely different. And I can use you 10 examples, including myself, selling, $50 million of dirt and everything else. But also, you must be flexible. You got to look at your business differently, and you got to be flexible, not get stuck. I call it SOS, stuck on stupid. Mm-hmm. You got this idea, but the ones that really make ideas work are the improvers, the ones that have their heads on a swivel. So, listen, human beings are one of the few people that can, actually, they're the only species that can adopt. You're never going to go downstairs to see your dog walk itself, fed itself, read the New York Times in a corner. Goldfish doing backflips and breaststrokes. Human beings out of all the species on the planet, which is what's really amazing, can adjust, can adapt. Wake up broke, wake up hungry, and wake up curious. Curiosity and enthusiasm is the art and the key to starting your road to extraordinary. When you're 11, you're curious. Enthusiasm. Now, enthusios, is to be with God. So you must have faith incorporated and wrapped around the knowledge, the hard work, the grind, the grit. You have to have faith and believe that you're putting out this good work, you're doing all the right things, and that good things are going to happen. There are times when you're not feeling it, but the good Lord didn't put us on here to fail. There's a lot of learning lessons along the way, but the good Lord didn't say, Brandon Steiner, he's a screw up. We bring a lot of that stuff onto ourselves, and a lot of it is about the bounce back and, the persistence, which I've been really, really grateful to have, that I got from my mom. But curiosity, enthusiasm is the initiator. When you're 11, do you think anything's possible? Yes, you think everything's possible. You have to maintain the 11-year-old attitude where you're broke you're enthusiastic, and you're trying to find out everything about everything as much as you can. That combination begins the road to extraordinary.
Yeah, you mentioned that, just how people overanalyze the situation. Sometimes we're thinking about, what is this going to cost? How do I get this off the ground? You have a great story, if you would share this with everyone, where you would just have an idea of getting, it was a hockey player that just won the Stanley Cup, and you're like, I'm going to get this guy, and you had no understanding of how it was going to happen, but I'm going to get him. I'm going to be able to sell his autographs. If you can just break that down, like, how did you go from having an idea to executing on it? What was the time frame that it was done? Do you think that the longer we take to do something, the more likely we're not going to do it? Do you just go at it, and make mistakes and then repair as you go? What is your process for that?
I think that there's a combination of both. I mean, yes, you want to go at it, you want to go after it. I'm still 64. I'm picking myself up and going after it. And there are times when I got to lay back and, you got to wait, because sometimes the cards you have are not the ones you can play that will get you to a winning hand. As you get more experience, you realize just being overly aggressive doesn't always get it done. I think also the urgency, you have to have a sense of urgency with what you're doing. Obviously, to me, I'd like to tell you a great story, but I was just trying to get off the damn train. I was taking the train to New York every day. My wife was making a lot more money than I was, and wasn't feeling great about myself. And I came up with an idea on the train that to have one of the famous hockey players, Mark Messier, sign these back pages of the New York Post. And I was like, man, I think I could sell a lot of those. And the way my brain works is like, when I see something really difficult, and this is a really important part, because we all have a story, as you mentioned, and we got to be careful about that story, because most of our stories are not true. And we will talk ourselves out of things that are not even possible, let alone true. So you got to be
What do
careful
you
how this
mean our
story,
stories aren't true? What do you mean by that?
no, it's never going to work. There's no way
Yeah.
he's going to do it. How am I going to get to him? What's my wife going to say? All the bullshit. It's like, and we all do it. It's like, oh, I'm not going to ask that girl out. There's no way she's ever going to want somebody like me. She's too good looking. She's beautiful. How's she going to want me? How's that going to ever happen? I'm never going to ask the boss for a raise. I mean, he's tough. He's never giving out raises. I mean, I'll tell you what, the one thing is that everything you don't go for and ask for, absolutely you're not getting. That's
Right.
a fact. So, here I am. I mean, my brain works in the end. I think about what it's like to celebrate with Mark, having done this huge project, Mark Messier. That's what I thought about. And I thought about driving my brand new car, which I'd never driven one before. That's what I thought. And I worked backwards. When I'm going after something, I remember when I was in college, if I saw this beautiful girl that I wanted to date, I'm like, I would think backwards. I'd be thinking, oh, now I'm in a loving, great relationship with her. We've been dating. I'm now taking her out for dinner. And then I'm working backwards. Like, I'm trying to figure out what all the things I had to do in order to get to that point. But I had that picture in my mind. I'm a big picturization guy. And it's really worked well for me. I like to picture the success. I think like daydreaming and picturization, I mean, you're controlling all the lines. It's your book. You could write it any way you want. Why not go crazy? I've done some amazing things. I've met amazing people, which people, I don't know how you did that. I'm like, it is, I dreamt it. I saw it. I pictured it. And then the other thing is, I always think about what value I can provide. Whether I'm trying to make a new friend, whether I'm trying to sign a big name athlete, I'm thinking, what can I do for them? Most people are thinking about the big account they're trying to get and what you're going to get out of it. I'm thinking about what I could do for them. What value can I provide? And value is what you could do for someone that they can't do for themselves. So you have to think about them, not you. We know what you're trying to do. Make money. You're trying to make a sale, whatever it is. No. Sometimes you got to do some things. If you really want the relationship and you want to get things rolling, you're going to have to actually put out and take some risks that may not pay dividends right away. So like with Derek Jeter, I got involved with his turn two. I was very involved with that at the beginning. It wasn't clear that I was going to have a relationship with him, but I did a lot of things, helped him raise a lot of money. I knew the foundation was important to him. Messier was a very, 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 very careful guy. It was a small dining room table. He was less is more. He didn't like doing a lot of deals with a lot of people. So I knew getting in that room would be difficult. And I had to work my way around the family, the accountant, the lawyer. And I think what really moved Mark at that time was doing something that was good for hockey. He's like, this guy's going to start doing, nobody's doing hockey collectibles at that time. And I was like, I'm going to do hockey collectibles. And he thought that would be really good to raise the level of the game and give attention to a bunch of different players, not only him, because he's not really an attention grabber. So that was the value prop for him. And I can't emphasize enough about the value proposition, which is, I think, you know, if you want to be a great entrepreneur, I always tell people, like, increase your common sense, because empathy is about putting yourself in someone else's shoes. And that means you have to get out of your head and start thinking how other people are thinking. Radical listening, really listening to what other people, even though you know you don't even agree, or maybe you don't even like that person. But radical listening, empathy and compassion, getting into someone else's head, thinking what they're thinking, feeling what they're feeling, go through what they're going through, will lead you to the white space every time, twice on Sunday. So I always tell people, like, my son's like, Dad, you know, I'm a lot smarter than you. You know, I have one of those kids who's got photographic memory. Okay. You can never help me with his homework. I mean, he was a really bright kid. I go, let me tell you something, Crosby. He goes, no, but Dad, you have me in the common sense here. I said, you may need to worry about the common sense, but you've mastered the art of school. And common sense is such an important element, because it really means get out of your head. If you want to fill yourself, forget yourself. You want to go kick some ass today? Find somebody to help. Find somebody to serve. Find a problem that's worth solving, and don't worry about what you're getting back. I always say, do as much as you can for as many people as you can, as often as you can, and expect nothing back. But most people can't do it. They can't do it. And that's why you end up a little short of the bus stop of extraordinary. You know, the bus stopped, and I wonder why I couldn't go another 2 stops. You know why? Because you were keeping score. Because you really don't want to go all out. At the end of the day, you're only here for a short period. Why not put it out? Why not do everything you possibly can? Why not? It's going to be just as much effort, right? So that's kind of my thinking, is like, I work backwards. I lead with a lot of curiosity, enthusiasm. So I'll go into a meeting, I'm prepared with value. I'm not worried about what I can get. I'm worried about what I can give, what I could do. And I put myself in that person who I'm meeting with shoes. I call them up on the phone. Where are you right now? What are you going through? Oh, got 2 kids driving me crazy. Oh, my boss is up my butt. Oh, I got forecasting to do. I'm constantly thinking about what the other person's thinking about, so I can relate to where they're at. And that is the key to great entrepreneurism. And that is the road to extraordinary. Enthusiasm, curiosity, no doubt. Lead with empathy and compassion. Get out of your head. Fill yourself by getting caught up with everyone else is thinking. Get externally distracted. And don't get caught up with your first idea, because it's never your best idea. Be an improver, not an inventor. You know, think about what you're doing. And by getting into other people's heads, you can think about what else is missing and what else needs to be improved. And that's where you really make the money. Jack Taylor killed it. He didn't invent the rent-a-car business, but he improved it, and he found the niche, because riches are in the niches every time, twice on Sunday. He found the niche. 85% of enterprises business is in replacement cars, not rent-a-cars. Insurance companies, car dealerships. It's outrageous.
It's beautiful because it's simple too, right? Sometimes we make it a lot more complicated than it needs to be. You know, you're a phenomenal speaker just in speaking to you in this moment, but I know you do a lot of speaking for some world-class organizations like the New York Yankees, BMW, Nike, Live Nation, Harvard Business School. You know, when you're speaking to elite groups of people, I have a lot of people that our audience is made up of go-getters, entrepreneurs, people that are doing well, but they want to do even better. You know, I think it's so important for us to hear this message, because you're inspiring. And so I know you said we shouldn't listen to people that are older than us, but I don't agree. I think that there's so much wisdom and knowledge that you can share. You know, as you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning when you don't have to, that to me is inspiring, because there's something inside of you that still wants more. What is it that makes someone say, I've had enough, versus, you know, someone taking their game and then going to the next level? How do you always stay in that place where you're not going down the path of comfort and complacency, but then you're staying committed to that path of being that one that sets everything else apart? What advice do you give to these great organizations?
First of all, you raise a good point about the mentorship with young ones listening to adults. What I'm into is reverse mentoring. So of course, you have to take as much, every older person, that's a library. And your
Yes.
objective is to crack into that library and steal and take all the knowledge so you don't have to go relive everything. But what I tell older people is the younger ones can mentor you too. Like I had so many younger kids over the last 10 years mentor me on the social media and all these apps. I didn't know how to do any of it. So I keep a lot of young ones close. I teach them and mentor them. I share with them. And they do a great job teaching me and sharing. So reverse mentoring is huge. Now, the consistency of what gets you up every day is, I'll tell you a little story. I was in Tampa watching a spring training game a whole bunch of years ago, and I was supposed to meet Mariano there after the game, the great closer. At that time, he was pretty popular. He'd won a few World Series already. And the fifth inning, all of a sudden, Mariano sits down next to me in the stands. Now, that was pretty cool. I'm not going to lie. But I'm like, yo, what are you doing? I thought we were meeting after the game. He goes, what are you talking about? I just pitched the last inning. I asked Joe, it was Joe Torre, if I could leave early, if I could pitch early because I had something to do after the game. It's just where we could leave early, not get caught up with the crowd. I said, that was you out there? I was like, he goes, Brandon, that was 1, 2, 3. I had 9 pitches. I knocked 3 out and boom, I'm here. I said, yeah, it's just a spring training game. It's Tampa. Who cares? Whoa, wait a minute. I don't alter anything. When I pitch, anytime I get on the mound, it's game 7. It's World Series. It's the game on the line. I never alter my mental approach. I never alter my game plan other than everything's on the line. And this way, when I get to the game 7 in the middle of the season, or I'm in the playoffs or World Series, I alter nothing. There's no such thing, Brandon, as a big game. And I always say to people, like, there's no such thing as a big game. If you, I got a big meeting today. What are you saying about all the other meetings? Oh, I've got this big podcast I'm doing. Well, what are you saying about the other podcasts you've done? They're not big. They're not important. You have to treat everything like it's important. You don't want the doctor to come in who's doing surgery. Oh, yeah, it's just her. Yeah, it's not a big deal. You want that doctor to walk in, and the best ones do. They don't differ. They don't change. It's the same music. It's the same staff, the same approach. And I think that's so important. Like people always say to me, like, oh, Brand, I just came in. I just bought a $100 baseball. You treat me like I was a king. I was like, yeah, I treat everybody like a king. I don't want you to feel special because everybody's special. It's like every day is important. Every day is a big day. My wife would say, what do you got today? It's another big day. Every day is a big day. Otherwise, what are you doing about the other days? You're disrespecting it. And that's why the people have the ups and downs. In order to acquire that kind of mindset, you have to be in a constant pursuit of knowledge. You got to be on top of your game. I always say R&D is rip off and duplicate. You need to find out what everyone else is doing to know what you're going to beat. I'm not looking to be extraordinary. I'm looking to be the only. Therefore, I must know what everyone else is doing. That's anything to do with my business. I want to know what I'm beating. I want to know what I got to outthink. I got to outwork. I got to outdo. Simple. So, yeah, there's no such thing as a big game. I wake up every morning. When I can't wake up in the morning, feel like I want to go compete and why I want to get a little better, a little smarter, I'm going to go home. I'm going to stay home because maybe it's time to go and golf and call it a day. I don't see that for me. I don't see that as my future. I'm not a retiring type of personality, but I like the competition. I like the art of business. And as I said earlier, business is a game and it's all about scoring points. And if you do all the little things and taking care of your clients, following up, servicing them, coming up with ideas that help them solve problems, they're going to keep you around.
I think it's so important to think of it as a game too. This is why you don't rest on the previous game, because whenever you're playing a sport, you can't pull off of the win and say, well, okay, well, I did this, last game. So give me a break with this game. It doesn't work like that. You got to show up. You got to play right now as if that game didn't exist. Can you speak on that? Because a lot of people, I think they just get tired. I don't know if that's the right word, but when people use this word a lot, burnt out. But what there is a lack of understanding that, like, you can't say, well, I already did that. then you have to retire, because the whole art of being in business is to stay in the game and not to rest on what you scored last week or what you did 5 years ago and still harping on that.
I think you got to turn your expectation into appreciation.
Yeah.
And I think what happens is, you see companies that had forecasts of $1 billion and they only did 800 million and they're failing.
Mhm.
So, you got to be careful about the deals you cut with yourself.
Yeah.
And you got to make sure that you don't get too caught up in the expectations, because when you expect something and then is what the world gives you, that gap is the anxiety, or is you give up, or you get tired because you feel like you can't accomplish what you set out to do, even though it was just a damn guess and a forecast.
Mhm.
But
Yes.
meanwhile, you got this gap, and the bottom line is, did you do the best you could? Did you work hard? Did you think about it as much as you should have thought about it? And I think that a lot of times where I always tell people is like, this comes down to this word called happiness, which
Mhm.
is a very confusing word. And I say happiness resides on the corner of growth and gratitude. If you want to keep going, turn up the volume on your gratitude. And turn up your volume on your growth. You have to be growing and learning. When you're growing and learning and challenged, you're happy.
Yeah.
Gratitude is a lot deeper than just being thankful for the obvious. But here I am, I'm doing this conversation with you. I'm very grateful. But the reality is, somebody had to go make this phone, somebody had to ship it, somebody had to box it, and somebody had to sell it to me, and somebody had to come up with this whole online version of how we can even do this. And then I can't get into the 50 ways that you even existed to be here on the phone with me, and the clothes you're wearing, and the couch behind you, which somebody designed, somebody shipped, somebody bought. That's getting into deep level of gratitude, and I think that's why a lot of people around the world look at us and a little disturbed, because our level of gratitude, for the most part, is short.
Mhm.
And if there's anything I feel like the baby boomer generation maybe didn't pass down correctly, it was a high enough level of gratitude for this amazing country, the amazing things that we have right at our access. And I think we're seeing it sometimes with our younger ones, that part of it. There's a lot to be grateful for. So if you want to keep going without getting tired, be careful about what story you're telling yourself, the story, the forecast, the expectation, and make sure it's reasonable. And don't be afraid to reforecast. It's
Yeah.
just a story you came up with. And then,
Yeah.
the gratitude, you really have to practice it, and you have to learn a deeper level of it than just, I think it's great to please, thank you. And I think that's great. We don't always get that in New York, right? But going in a deeper level of the gratitude and realizing, really looking around you, seeing all the different things that happen to make your day work, it's amazing.
It really is. You're 100% correct. When we think about this kind of, I always call it an Amazon era that we live in, where we order something and we pay $2 and it's there faster. If we're on the Prime membership, we can get it the same day. So we have like a confused vision of time. And in your book, I love what you said, because this is actually what I teach my team, because I'm always up against working with a lot of young people that I want to make six figures. I want to be a millionaire. And I'm like, pull it back. I can get you there, but not tomorrow. So, and in your book, you said it's going to take 4 to 5 years to learn your industry, master the necessary skills. I love that. And then you said the next 5 to 10 years, then you got to utilize those skills, learning from experience. This is beautiful. I think we don't speak about this enough in business, where there is an element where if you can learn how to play in decades, and it's that art of sprinting and running the marathon at the same time. What words of wisdom could you speak on for a lot of people that they think, I don't have time, I have to make six figures, I have to be a millionaire, I have to do this right away, my friend's doing this, and they get distracted and they're hopping from opportunity to opportunity. They're never even learning their craft, their industry. They never get really deeply embedded into it. They're just distracted. What would you say about this kind of mentality that we're in right now?
Well, I would say first thing is, I think one of the things that really screws us up is school. The fact that you can get a C or a B and still graduate and keep forward. You get a B or C in my office and we get fired. Like, right? You're in the operating room and the doctor does a B or a C plus on your operation, you
Wow.
die. I mean,
Yeah.
you're dead.
Yeah.
Like, so I think there's a certain level that we need to kind of push ourselves to do and be the best we can be, and not gets caught up in the grades and get caught up in the money. It's the money. Never chase the money. Chase the things that get you the money.
Hmm.
And that's a very big mistake that a lot of people make, is they have this expectation that they're going to make a lot of money. The truth of the matter is that there are only 22.5 million people in this entire planet out of 9 billion that outside of their house, their jewelry, their collectibles, their car, their actual assets. There's only 22.5 million people that have $1 million in liquid cash. That's in stocks, bonds, but outside of their house, their car, collectibles, 22.5 million, 7 million out of 300 million people in this country have $1 million. So if I said to you, I got this unbelievable deal, give me $1 million tomorrow, you're going to make another million in 2 years. Only 7 million people have that million themselves to give. It's a very small pocket of people. And I think it's very delusional sometimes how few people have the kind of money that you think. But there are some people that have a shitload of money.
Yeah.
There are some people that just keep having more and more and more and more and more. But it's not as wide as you think. And to get into that little club is not easy. Now, if I ask the people that are listening, the number one problem, married, not married, it's time management. But yet you mentioned you have Amazon, you have all these things to save you time, and people still can't manage their day.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is because you wake up in the morning, you got all these things you got to do. You're trying to, all this stuff coming at you. And by the time you get through the day, you don't realize your wife had a mammogram, your kid had a test. You didn't even follow up with the kid and see how the kid did on the test. You never checked even with your wife on the mammogram. And you're going to bed and you're feeling like, I don't know how I'm going to get everything done tomorrow. I didn't get half the stuff done today. And the reality of it is it's not complicated. You got to come up with your MVP list, your most valuable priorities. You can't do it all, but you can knock out your most valuable priorities. I always tell people, if you have more than 3 priorities in a day, you might as well go to the bar, get drunk, get a bong out, smoke weed, whatever. I mean, you're wasting your day anyway. So just might as well have fun doing it. But if you can wake up in the morning, come up with your most valuable priorities and figure out who's important, do what's important for who's important, and match them up with your most important priorities. And when you get done with those 3 most important priorities, you can then drift down to the other stuff. You're not going to go to bed feeling like you're terrible. You're not. You're going to go to bed feeling good about yourself because you got the most important stuff done for the people that were most important. I always say WMI, what's most important. And I think time management, you hit it on the head. It's huge. There's a lot of stuff going on and we have access to a lot. There's a lot coming at us on our computers, on Instagram, TikTok. I mean, there's a lot coming at us. So you have every reason to be distracted, which is why first thing you have to do in the morning, first 90 seconds, you got to get your MVP list together. And the other thing is, I've got my to-do list here. I'm still using a white pad. I mean, I'm old school, but what I have is my not to-do list. The people I got to stay away from, the things that I don't want to get caught up in that I know are going to drain me, suck me dry. So right away, I have my list. Right away, walk in this office, what's the most important thing? My wife. Anything my wife has asked me to do, I already did it already. I did it the first thing I walked in. We have some problem with our roofer. First thing I did, I squared that away. My daughter was looking for some tickets. I nailed that down right away too. Boom. So I really took care of who's important, what's important. My wife, my kids, I took care of what they needed. Now I got my 3 most important priorities I'm going to get done today. So think about your MVP list. What's important, who's important, do what's important for who's important every day. And don't forget about your not to-do list, because those are the people, they'll drain the hell out of you and you won't get to your most important people.
I love that. I was raised by a very strict father, and it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, because when I came into the business world, I just have such a deep appreciation for strength. And, I can learn from strong men, which helped me in business a whole lot. I would like to know, like, what words of wisdom did you give to your daughter? Because you've seen so much. You've done transactions with just to be able to say that you are in partnership with the Yankees is not a small thing. That's a organization that the world knows about for their standards and their excellence and just going above and beyond. What advice, you have a daughter, so you're going to talk to her in a certain way to prepare her better than most, and you've seen a lot. What advice have you given to her to give her
Well,
an edge over everyone else?
first of all, my wife, and like my mom, my wife, my daughter, they're straightening me out.
You're just
So,
listening. You're just
well,
taking
I'll
it
give you an
in.
example. I was getting honored by the United Women Media. It was 500 women of this feminist group that all were involved with media relations.
Okay.
They had asked me 3 years in a row to honor me. And, I've always been a big fan of women's sports. Like right now on my website, I'm the first one to create a thing called the Collective, which is a group of phenomenal women that are doing a lot more than just what I'm doing. But the part I grouped up with them is to put the first line of women collectibles together. So you can buy signed autographs from a Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, Brianna Stewart, Alex Morgan, Megan Rapinoe, and there's 20 amazing women athletes and growing. Love women's sports. I'm like, and I've been loving women's sports for a while. This is back into the 90s. I got me home watching a women's basketball game. My wife's like, what are you doing? You watching women's softball, basketball? What? But I always loved women's sports. I thought the women play the game the right way. So I go home, I tell my daughter, I say, getting honored, would you give me the award? My daughter's like, award? Huh? No, I'm not giving you the award. First of all, what have you done for women's sports? All the influence you've had, what have you done for women's sports? What have you done? I want you to not accept the award. I want you to not accept the award. I want you to do more for women's sports. And then next year, I'll give you the award. Well, you've done a little for women's basketball up at Syracuse. So I was a big mentor up there and a big supporter of the Syracuse women's team. And, it's interesting, like, she's just kicking my butt about it. And I said, she's right. I'm like, you love women's sports. What have you done? Nothing. So as soon as I started my new company, first thing I did is I started reaching out to as many of the women athletes that I could get a hold of. I was really, really grateful to get a hold of the Collective, which is run by a bunch of really smart women at Wasserman. And here I am, 3 years later now, really starting to kick some butt with some of the women athletes and starting to make a difference. So I don't know what I've taught them. You'd have to ask them. But I'll tell you one thing, those are accountability police over there. They don't let me get away with a thing. And you can learn a lot. And I tell guys all the time, like, listen, it's difficult being married. I've been married for 35 years. When your wife is right 98% of the time, the other 2%, she just agreed with you to make you feel good. And listen, women are smarter than men. That's the one thing I've learned over time. Like I've dealt with a lot of great women over the years, and there's no way a man is ever going to do in a day what a woman does. They're not going to have the smartness, the accountability, the warmth, the detail. There's just no way. I mean, there's no way I'm doing what I do in a day and my wife's doing it in a day. It's never going to be matched up. And I think a lot of guys know that. We just it's now kind of caught up to us. And my mother always said it, men and women are never going to be equal. It's never going to happen. And finally, I confronted her about it. And she said, yeah, men and women are never going to be equal because women are superior. And we just don't want men to know it because their egos are a lot more fragile than ours. So we have to keep things kind of in check. But she predicted that this would happen, this movement. And she said it's just a matter of time because women were always going to be superior and smarter than men. And there's probably some truth to that. I mean, there's a lot of truth to it, actually, if you get down to the science of it and everything. So, yeah, my wife and my daughter following my mother's footsteps of, there's more of them like keeping me straight than me sharing them words of wisdom.
Well, I love that. I really do. I want to thank you for your time today. I have one last question for you, if you'll share it with us. But you said you met Jay-Z in 2010, and he told you the secret between being hot versus being truly great. What was that secret?
Well, I sat next to Jay, and not to name drop, but what the hell? I sat next to Jay many games. Well, I became friendly with Jay and Juan, his OG was his buddy, because we sat next to each other in the first row in the old stadium for years. And I really never paid much attention to it. I wasn't big into hip hop and rap. I heard he was like a singer, but I wasn't. But anyway, we started getting a little close, and I started realizing that the dude was kind of big. And we're hanging out one day, and I was eating some Twizzlers. He was a big candy guy. I love candy when he came to the game, and he was such an avid Rabbit fan. And he was a big, one thing about Jay was he was a huge question asker. Like people said, "What'd you ask Jay?" I'm like, I was just trying to answer the questions he was asking me. The dude was like, that's where the curiosity comes in, right?
Yeah.
He's just nonstop curious about. I was in the sports business, he was in the music business, and he was really taking off and he was expanding. So he grabbed my Twizzlers, a couple of Twizzlers out of my bag. I said, Jay, did you just grab 2 of my Twizzlers? When a man grabs another man's Twizzlers, that makes us boys. So what ended up happening was, at the end of that, we were laughing, we're having a good time. He goes, listen, if I want to go to a concert, just give me a call, give OG a call. Well, give it to you. I said, Jay, you think I need you to get tickets to your concert? Do I look like I need you to get me tickets to go to one? I wouldn't even know what to do at your concert. If I'm going to go watch one of your shows, I need to get on the plane. I need to just live the whole thing with you. Backstage, I just want to see it all. And sure enough, he called me. He's like, okay, let's go. And went backstage, and it was live at Yankee Stadium with Eminem.
That's
and Beyonce
awesome.
was on that tour. It was pretty cool. So I'm backstage with him. He's DJing, and we're watching the Yankee game. It's just 4 of us, and we have his own little private room. And there's different people coming in and out. All these different rappers. Will Smith's coming in. This one, that one. It was crazy. But we're into it. And he goes, B, you're having a good time. I go, yeah, this is cool. I'm kind of absorbing it, because I was a big music lover, but I hadn't really gotten into the hip hop. I said, but you seem awfully hyped up about playing a concert at Yankee Stadium. What's the big deal? You've played everywhere. He goes, you know what's the big deal? Because I don't want to be hot. I want to be relevant. I want this thing to stick for years and years and years of time. I don't want this to be some fad. In order to do that, I've got to get into different venues. I want a cross-section of people listening. I want to make sure that I'm relatable. I'm connected with those people. And to fill up Yankee Stadium with the types of people that are in the stadium, young, old, white, black, every color, got me amped up and hyped up. And 3 months later, he calls me up, and we're in Carnegie Hall, black tie. I'm in the first row. Black tie, Carnegie Hall. And I finally got it. He's like, this guy was all interested in, he made plenty of money already at that point, but he was, and that's the thing. It's like, you don't want to stop at extraordinary. It's an easy bus stop. You know what I mean? If you want to be the only, you want to be, wow, do you ever hear that guy? Oh, he's unbelievable. You ever hear of that woman? No, that woman, she's broken every record. But you want to be that person, like, you got to want to make an impact. You got to want to make a difference, and it's not convenient.
Yeah, I love this. I think that's what standalone is. In standalone, I highlight the word one, and that's my whole thing. Like, be that one, and that is what, to me, extraordinary is. So
I mean, think about it. He took the time. I mean, I'm Brandon Steiner. Think about the time he took to make an impact on me, and because that's the way you got to do it. It's like, I always think I'm just one fan at a time, have an impact on one person at a time. I'm not saying if I could change one life. No, that's bullshit. People say, if I could change one life. No, I'm looking to change a lot of lives.
Yeah.
I'm looking to have an impact on a lot of people. I'm not, people say, oh, if I could just impact one person. I'm like, really? You just impacted one person, you'd be good?
Yeah.
I'm not feeling that, but I'm feeling like I want to impact a lot of people and make a difference with a lot of people. So, that's just my feeling about it. And, I think you can't surround yourself with enough of those kind of people, as often as you can to learn. When you're around somebody who's great at what they do, regardless of what they do, the waiter, the bartender, you walk in a bar, that bartender, there's no bar you've ever seen run that way, handled that way, serviced that way. Anytime I'm around people that, you can just see they care about what they're doing deeply, you can learn from them, regardless of whether you're ever going to want to serve a drink or not.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I just want to say thank you for your time today. This has been a wealth of wisdom, and I really appreciate that. Where can we go to find out more about your company? I know you have CollectibleXchange. If we want sport, what is it that you do now? If we want to connect with you, Maybe there's people that are watching that have a company and like, I want you to speak to my people and, engage
Yeah.
with you. Where do
I'm
we
at,
go?
BrandonSteiner.com gives you all the information about my speaking and everything. Collectible Exchange is a website. It's like eBay. You can buy and sell any of your collectibles on there with a lot more services than eBay provides, frankly.
Oh, wow.
And Steiner Agency is, I'm still booking athletes to help companies grow. So if you have a young company, you don't need to hire Michael Jordan. We've helped so many companies grow by use of celebrity marketing. I've been doing that for 35 years plus too. And that's the secret to my sauce is helping athletes find corporate gigs, PR opportunities, advertising. But the Collectible Exchange is my new version of my reinventing myself. And I've had to rely on a lot of young kids to teach me the tech part of the business. And we're doing a lot of really cool stuff to help people. You buy something, like I see people die, like, wow, they sat with all this stuff was in their closet.
Yes.
Now I'm telling people, like, look, maybe you bought something, maybe you're a big fan. 20 years later, you're not such a big fan anymore. Why not be able to sell that and buy something else? So I'm trying to create a platform where people can do that. I'm a big LinkedIn guy, so follow me on LinkedIn. I'm at my capacity with people that I can connect with, but you should follow me. And if you go on the Facebook fan page, just like it because I put a lot of free content up pretty much daily, and it's usually some good words of wisdom, some good stuff. And I respond to everything, by the way. So if you have a question, you have something on your mind that you're curious about, I really try to make a point. And this is not recently, but I'm one of those guys. I respond to everybody for the last, I don't know how many years. I would say everybody's important. So I try my best to just respond to everybody and try to help as many people as I can. And what drives me now is a lot of the profits at Collectible Exchange and my speaking and books that I've written. I'm about to come out my fourth book, go towards different charity initiatives that my wife and I are into. So it's been really, when you're working, knowing that you really can help make a difference, that's kind of like my motivation these days. So that's what drives me to go and speak and write the books, because hopefully you pick up something from the book or when I speak, but then you also know at the same time the money that you're paying me is going to be helping some other charities as well.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. Thank you again. It's been an honor and a pleasure being with you in this moment. And thank you for all the help that you've given to so many people today in this conversation. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Hope this was a help.